Hello dear friends. Today I have an idea that I'd like to show you. It's something that I used to do a lot with when I had my shop back in South Africa, and that is how to create your own beautiful flower ephemera using your punches, some book pages and some stains. And it's a fairly simple process. You're not going to need an awful much more than this, other than maybe a dot of paint here and there, but you could always make a plan with something else like a paint pen, and it's a quick process. So let me move the punches out the way. I'm going to use some of these distress spray stains. These are pure color, like pure pigment, and you'll notice if I shake the bottle that there's no noise. That means that they don't have a little ball bearing in them. So those are clear colors. They're quite intense. And then I've also got a distress oxide spray. This is fossilized amber, and this has a white pigment in as well, and you'll see that it often settles at the bottom of the bottle. So when I shake this one, you'll hear that there's a little ball bearing in it just to agitate the paint. So this oxide sprays, you'll always have to give it a good shake, and because they have white in them, they will always be a little bit more opaque. So we'll just play with that. And then I have a little spritz bottle that just has some water. So because we are always quite precious about our the mess we make on our papers, and we don't want to lose any of that yummy goodness, I'm actually just putting some white paper underneath here so that I'll be able to use the color that spreads a little bit later. So to begin with, I'm just going to take a book page, and I'm just starting off. I'm going to hold my bottle fairly high above the page and just spritz some color on. And this color that I'm using here is wild honey, which I think is absolutely glorious. Now, if you mixed the wild honey, which is a yellow value, with a little bit of something like salvage patina or faded jeans, you're going to start to get a slightly greeny effect. So just to show you that, I'm just going to do this one or two little corners here. And you'll see where it's starting to mix, it's going a little bit green. And I'll do some on this page here with some of the speckled egg, just in this corner. Speckled egg is slightly more muted. Just love this color. Alright, and if you wanted to tone the colors down, you could use some of the oxide sprays because they have white in. And the interesting thing about color that you'll see that as we're working here, the color you put on last tends to be more dominant. So we started off here with the wild honey, and then we moved to the salvage patina. But if I was to come back with a little bit of wild honey, immediately that brings up the yellow value. So in this corner where I've got the speckled egg, I'm just going to do a little bit of this fossilized amber, and you will immediately see it has quite a different sort of color value to it. So I'm just going to set that aside. They won't take terribly long to dry. I'm going to take another piece of paper. Let's set this off a little bit so that we get a bit of color on here. I'm going to start this one off with lumberjack plaid, quite a nice robust red. Really good. So we know that red and yellow make an orange. So I'm going to now go in with some of my wild honey. And just spritz that a little bit. And then we'll set that one aside to dry. Let me just make a little bit of space here. It always reminds me a little bit of a wildflower garden, and we've just had such a beautiful wildflower garden at work. We planted rows and rows of sunflowers. I think we've probably planted about 300 or 400 sunflowers. I'm going to go in with faded jeans now. And we've also done lots of cornflowers and daisies and different wildflowers that we've collected seeds from over the year, and it's just made the most spectacular display. And what I love about it is that our woodworking shop with our trainees has actually made some beautiful bee boxes and some bird houses, and because they're all scattered along the fence line along where the wildflowers are, we're seeing such an increase in the wildlife, and it's beautiful. So look at this one. It's quite a different sort of color palette to that. It's a lot more muted, even though we have just used the same sort of stains. So let's do one more color mix, I think, and then I will show you what we're going to do. So I think let's start off with the fossilized amber, which remember is slightly opaque because it's got the white in it. And then we will go in with maybe, let's go with salvage patina, I think. And then just to add a little bit of depth to that, because these are all fairly similar values in color, I think I'll just put 1 or 2 spritzes of that, and maybe a little bit of the lumberjack plaid. Alright, so we're going to just let this dry, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, so the dyes that we've sprayed onto the papers have all dried nicely, and it's really important that you make sure that there are no sort of soft spots on the paper. Otherwise, when you're going to start punching, you're going to find that the punch doesn't go through crisply. So I'm going to start punching using my set of dies. So I've got 3 different sizes, and I'm going to do some of each and just randomly punch out shapes so that I have a nice selection of them, wanting to have a variety of different colors as well. So, this is always the problem. Let's get that. The book page paper is a little bit soft, and once you start punching, it's sometimes better just to snip off the bits that you've already done. Right, so I'm going to do some from each page so that I've got a selection of colors, and they will be rather interesting because they will all be so different because of the dye spread. See, you're just going to have to watch this with your punches as you work. Maybe have a pair of tweezers on hand. Okay, so I'll have some of each of those. And let's have a couple of green. Oopsie. Turn this around. And if you haven't got ink sprays that you can use, you could certainly do them with old watercolors, or you could actually do them with little bits of paint that have left over. I've done these coloring of the book pages using just watercolor palettes when I'm wanting to change to a different color set. Then I will actually sometimes just take the leftover paint and just do a wash with that. So whatever you have. I've also used dried up ink pages, not ink pages, ink pads, to be able to do that. So I'm just going to continue now and just quickly work and punch out a whole lot of different sizes and different shapes and different colors. So as you're punching out your designs, it's quite useful just to have a pair of scissors on hand just to cut away all these little edges. This will help you to be able to get your punch to reach into the solid piece of paper so that you can actually use the balance of the inside page. These little bits you can just keep. You can use them for collage, or you could use them for interesting borders if you stuck them on another background page. So just snip away all these little bits that have already been punched so that your punch can reach these last little bits. Okay, now I'm going to actually use a little kebab stick to do a central mark on each of these flowers, and some for the bigger ones I'm just going to use the back of a pencil. I've chosen 2 different colors to use. One is this Pebeo yellow ochre, which is quite a nice mustardy color, and then I've taken a sort of a primary yellow, which is quite bright, that I'm going to do the centers. So I'm going to start with the ones furthest away, and because they are quite big, I'm just going to use my back of my pencil. You do need to hold your little paper mark down because otherwise it will move as you're working. And let's just do every alternative one. When I was punching out the little flowers, I did do more of the medium size because my thought is that I'm going to probably actually layer some of these up, and I might layer more small onto medium and then medium onto the large one. So that's why I've got a few more of those. Okay, this goes quite quickly, and you'll be able to change the colors for the center of your flowers to anything that you want depending on what color range you're actually working with. This gives you such flexibility when you're making ephemera, and it's quite a nice way to punch out little bits and pieces of color that you have, and then just make up your ephemera. It's one of those activities that can be done when you're watching TV or on a nice rainy day, or even if you're just trying to keep little ones busy during the school holidays. We've just started school holidays here in the UK, and it's, I know, for quite a lot of working mums, quite a difficult time because they still need to work and yet the little ones are wanting to be entertained. I'm going to do some now with the mustard, and I'm not even bothering to clean my pencil because it doesn't really matter. Oopsie, but too much paint. Doesn't really matter actually. When I look at all the flowers and in the horticultural field where I work, it's just brilliant because they're all so different colors, different shapes. In fact, some of these darker colors might need a mixture of the two together. Let's put a little bit on there. This one maybe just a smaller amount. And you could have a lot of fun with this. So, I mean, if you chose color palettes of, say, maybe pinks, you could do purple centers. Doesn't all have to be yellow. Right, so I'm just going to put the pencil down for now. I'll show you how I do it with the little kebab stick, which is just as easy. It's probably easier because it's flat, just to make a little mark. And for these little ones, I'm going to do them mostly yellow. So I'm just going to complete all of these, let them dry, and then I'll show you how we make the ephemera. Well, this is the fun part. So all my pieces of paper have dried, they've been punched out, and what I do then is I separate my flowers into different sizes so I can see where they are, and then I start to form sort of combinations. So you'll see, for instance, with these that I've got 3 different size little flowers on here. Don't tell me I've stuck that one down. Oh no, it's just hooked on the side. And then what I do is I've got some craft glue which I decant into a small little nozzle bottle, and you want just a tiny little drop on the back of it, and then when you come to put your next flower on top of the first one, so you're putting the medium size onto the large, you just want to orientate it so that the little petals fall in between the main ones, so that you actually get a nice sort of full flower at the end of it. And I'm going to do the same with this smaller one. Okay, so you'll make several of those and set them aside to dry. If I was doing a medium size and a small together, whoopsie, let me turn that over, then all I would do is just have 2 layers and put those together and let them dry. So let's do a blue one as well, because these are, I love the way that speckled egg has turned out. It's really gorgeous. So that you'll see that this one is darker on this side and lighter on one end, and I've got the same with the bottom one. So I'm just going to alternate that so that the darker is on the opposite side, covering the light so that it looks more interesting. And then I've got a very pale one here. You could also use the reverse of your flowers if you wished. So once your flowers have been laid up and set and dry, then you want to just take either something like an embossing tool, like one of these, or you could simply use your pliers. And all you're going to do is to start to lift up your petals on the middle flower, just to give them a little bit of depth. Even if you're going to put them into a junk journal and a page will lie on top of this and it will press it sort of flat, it still gives it better definition, because if you look at the flower, let me get one that's similar colors. This one where it's just been stuck down, very flat, but if I've got that, it actually just adds some depth to it. And you'll find even if you stick in a junk journal, the fact that you've actually just lifted them up off the base one makes it really nice, and gives it just a bit more interest. So then I'd like to show you, if I just can gently slide some of these out of the way, some of the ones that I did when I was in South Africa for my shop. And these were done also on book pages, but I had one of those rainbow ink pads, and I just simply did single layers of flowers, and I'd swipe the ink pad over telephone book pages that we had in South Africa, and also over book pages. So for instance, you'll see here that this one here is a book page, this one here is a telephone book page, and I quite like the marking of a telephone book page, but They are becoming a thing of the past, aren't they? So these were all just single layers that I did for my shop, and this was just blue from the telephone book, same with the telephone book, yellow, and it was really just using up what I actually had on my ink pad, because I just found that some of the colors I hadn't used as much as the others. So I'm hoping that this just gives you some ideas and some inspiration of things that you can actually do, and that you will be encouraged to start making ephemera for your, maybe your card making or junk journals, scrapbooking, because things don't have to be expensive. They can actually be things that are just readily made with things that you've actually got at home. So thank you for joining me. If you've enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to my channel, and I'd love to see you in the next video, and also would love to hear from you. So give me some feedback, whether you like this kind of content or whether you'd like me to do something different. Thank you for joining me today. Bye.